ChatGPT is becoming a go-to for all sorts of questions, from looking for ideas on how to improve things like social media posts to topics that should be addressed, in my opinion, by professionals. So that's the reason why I've decided to see what it has to say about a situation that I've been facing: getting my dog and 5 cats to cohabitate peacefully together. So in today's video, I'll break down the advice I got, what I think was good, and what I would advise instead as a certified canine behavior consultant, and share real examples from the situation we've been going through. And even though you're not facing the same exact issue with your dog, I think you can still get a good perspective into why asking ChatGPT for professional advice might not be the best idea. Because the advice will be only as good as the information it can gather. And believe me, there is a lot of advice on dogs and their behavior on the internet. Believe me. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Eva and I am a certified canine behavior consultant, as mentioned, and I focus on understanding and addressing the underlying reasons for behaviors through who dogs are as a species and individuals. Overall, the advice that ChatGPT gave was not the worst. And honestly, a lot of trainers do approach it the way ChatGPT suggested, which is why it was written in the way it was written. And if you are looking for advice on training, like cues, commands, whatever you want to call it, this is not the channel for you, because this is one of the first things that I advise against. But if you are interested in getting to the core of the issue, watch on. I think the fact that the advice that you get from ChatGPT is not completely horrible is actually quite dangerous, because there is some good mixed in with the bad. People stop being critical and take everything at face value, and the fact that ChatGPT communicates in a very assuring, comforting kind of way adds hugely to the fact that people like using it more and more. So what I did like about the advice that ChatGPT gave, the fact that it stated that if the dog is chasing the cats, that does not mean that the dog is bad, and advocating against punishment. But I think in 2026, that is a pretty low bar, in my opinion. Also mentioning seeking professional help was something that I did like, but it was mentioned totally at the end, where I think it should be put at the top for any advice giving. I also like the mention of putting safety first, so separating the cats and dog when unsupervised, making sure that cats always have an escape route, and that was it. So what I would do differently, or what I actually did instead, the first thing we need to realize is that every dog, every guardian, every situation is different. And that means that there is no one size fits all answer. And that holds true for any type of situation you are going through with your dog. And that's why the detailed steps I took, how long it took us, the sequence of events, and so on, will differ from all the details in your situation. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to seek professional help, because a good professional will be able to guide you through all the specifics of your situation and adjust the advice to you and your dog. ChatGPT also just focused on the cat dog situation. So the advice was only around what to do or not to do to get your dog to cohabitate with the cats. My advice to the clients, in the majority consists of changes that should be implemented in the dog's life in general, looking at the whole picture, because every single thing is connected and we cannot address any behavior in a vacuum. If the dog's life is in line with species appropriate lifestyle, if the dog's needs are met, everything becomes 100 times easier. For me, telling my clients how, in this example, deal with the cat dog situation is just a small piece of a much bigger puzzle. And prior to doing anything else, decompressing for the animal that arrived later is necessary before doing anything else. I'll be speaking from the point of view that the dog came after the cats. Change of environment is very stressful on its own. Adding to that any past events that significantly influence the dog can make everything much harder. Until your dog decompresses and it's able to self-regulate better, is able to think, cohabitating peacefully with the cats, if they have issues with that, might be near to impossible. So my advice would be to go slowly, don't rush, build strong foundations, because that will really help you moving forward. So slow introductions should start with, of course, after the dog had time to decompress, get used to the new environment. The introductions should start with smell first. So exchanging the blankets, exchanging the rooms in a way that the animals don't even come in contact or see each other. Then we can gradually move, if that was going okay for a couple of days, then we gradually move to them seeing each other through fences like baby gates, where all individuals can move freely without the worry that someone's life will be in danger. Because if we physically restrict dogs, as ChatGPT suggested, with a leash, what can happen is that we can severely influence the situation in a negative way. ChatGPT also suggested a use of the muzzle, which is in general a very popular advice in situations like this. What I think about the muzzles in this situation is that it can make allowances for things that we would otherwise not do. And we start relying just on the muzzle to do the work and stop doing everything else. And we put the dog in a situation that we otherwise wouldn't. So I'd say that if you don't feel comfortable with a certain situation, if the dog doesn't have a muzzle on, that's a sign that you or your dog are not ready to take that next step. And we also don't know how the muzzle is affecting the dog, and it could make the situation worse. And in a situation like this, we want everything to work in our favor. So we eliminate everything that could possibly, that have like a small possibility of making situation worse. And gradual introduction is something that I didn't do with my dog because I didn't have the knowledge that I have today. And when I brought Balt home, he looked totally fine with cats. No issues at all. What I didn't realize at that point that he was completely shut down and he didn't process what was happening around him. At around 14-day mark, when he started to decompress, his true mental and physical state became more clear. And that's when the chasing, trying to bite the cats started. And it was a huge shock for me at that point. And that's why it's so important to go slow and take the necessary time. Also, the huge emphasis on training that ChatGPT suggested is something I don't agree with. And I think that there are ways that work much, much better than training that also take the dog's point of view into consideration. But two main things I'd like to focus on in today's video are if you have a dog that only focuses on the cats, is not able to focus on anything else, that dog is not in a mind space where they would be able to listen to commands, respond to treats, or they will just eat the treats as fast as possible and then go back to staring at the cats. So in fact, you might be unknowingly reinforcing the focus on the cats. Also involving the food in sticky situations is not the best idea, in my opinion. Food is survival and it elicits strong emotions from excitement, arousal, food guarding, like insecurity, all the things that will negatively impact how the dog is around cats. Because if the dog is not able to be calm-ish, thinking goes out the door. And we want them to think, start thinking, and make good decisions, not chasing the cats. So by using treats, you could in fact be self-sabotaging any improvement. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to training is that training takes the dog's freedom of choice away, and it also takes away their ability to think. True, the dog might not be able to make good decisions at this point, but the only way that they can learn to do that in the future is by making decisions and thinking. But the only way they can learn to do that in the future is by using their brain, processing the information, and making good decisions from that. And being told what to do all the time does not achieve that. What will happen when you are not around, or when you don't use cues fast enough, or don't use cues at all because you wrongly interpreted the whole situation? Or what happens when your partner or other people in the household don't use cues in the same way or don't train the dog? The hard truth is that we hugely overestimate our abilities to correctly understand, interpret, and manage individuals of another species. In my opinion, it's a lot easier, safer, and less burdensome if we facilitate the knowledge and support to create the environment in which the dog can grow and become the best version of themselves. Dogs are extremely smart and they can achieve a lot more than what we are able to train them to do. And I think it's the best feeling to see who they become and what they are able to achieve once we give them the time and space, despite so many people telling you that this will never be possible if you don't train them and show them how it's done. And the dogs go and totally surpass everything we thought possible. One other thing that I wanted to mention, ChatGPT stated that an understimulated sighthound chases more. And that's also a very common belief. Understimulated dogs will cause trouble. And while that is true, because understimulated brain results in behavior, in coping behaviors that are not the best for the individual and the environment, but far more common than dogs being understimulated is that they are overstimulated with activities, duration of activity that is not in line with who they are as a species. So what we should be worrying about as guardians is overstimulating our dogs, because there is far greater chance that your dog is overstimulated than understimulated. And how long this journey will last is totally different for everyone. It took us 5 years to get to the point where Bald can be in the same room with the cats, sleep. And some might say, wow, that's a really long time. But for me personally, it's not, because this is something I thought would never be possible. I thought that they would have to be separated all the time. And I felt this huge guilt that I let everyone down, because I had to divide my time between the cats and the dog. And I felt very shitty because of that. And Balt was in a very bad mental and physical shape when I adopted him. And it took us a long time to heal. And the thing about healing is that you can never dictate someone's healing journey. And there was also one very important thing that I initially missed, because I only focused on the fact, okay, he is a sighthound that was trained to hunt, and despite being like passing the cat test, like he was still like hunting was something that he was trained to do. So I thought that that's the only reason he can't cohabitate with cats. But now I think that I missed a very important piece that carried much more weight for him than the fact that he was a hunting dog. But was severely attacked in the shelter at least 2 times. And this can cause a huge trauma. Shelter was his home for 2 years, and home is somewhere where we should all feel safe and protected, and that was violated for Bal. And now he came to this totally new space, totally new country with unknown individuals, human and cat alike, and he didn't know if he can trust those individuals, because his prior experience told him that he couldn't, that he should protect himself. I can't imagine how horrible and scary that feels. So, in order for him to be able to cohabitate with the cats, he had to trust them. He had to know that they are safe and that they will not cause him any harm. And that takes time. Building relationship takes time. Trusting someone and getting their trust in return takes time. Feeling safe takes time, and it takes different amount of time for every individual, and it's something that can never be trained. That's what ChatGPT can never give you: the uniqueness of each situation, each dog, each guardian. I strongly believe, based on my experiences with my clients, that the best results can only be achieved through collaboration of a professional who has a strong understanding and knowledge about everything related to dogs, and guardians who are the ones who know their dog the best and who are the experts in the situation they are in. And we cannot forget about dogs, because what they have to say about the whole situation is also a hugely important part in everything, because the dogs are the true experts on dogs and they should be listened to. If you are in the thick of it, I hope that this video gave you some useful informations or at least validation that you are not the only one going through something difficult with your dog. No one can tell you how your situation will evolve, how long it will take, if your dog will be able to cohabitate with the cats. But what I can tell you is that every situation can get better. If you have any wishes for future videos, please let me know. And if you're not already, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.